going to talk about successful collaboration amongst individuals and organizations. So we're going to touch on both. Let's get right to it. Let's introduce our panel members. First, we have Sarah Johnston. Can you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you're doing up there in Walsh County?
I'm the district manager up in Walsh County, North Dakota. And my job is to work with farmers and landowners and help them get conservation on the ground. And we have a fantastic collaboration going on up here that we'll talk more about.
Great, thanks, Sarah. And let's go to your partner in crime, Brad Brummond with NDSU Extension.
I'm Brad Brummond. I've been the NDSU Extension agent in Walsh County for 29 years now. And I've been working quite a bit with Sarah and our soil health team up here. I have a mixed livestock and crops background. I'm a certified crop advisor. I'm also was inducted in the National County Agents Hall of Fame last year.
Wow, Brad, you say that so seriously. That's a huge accomplishment. So celebrating that. That's a great thing for not only North Dakota, but for Extension and for you. And then we also have Susan Sanson-Liebig from the NRCS. And Susan, can you introduce yourself?
I'm the soil quality specialist for the USDA-NRCS here in North Dakota. I've been in this position for, I don't know, close to not quite 20 years, but any rate, but what I do is we work a lot with our field staff on training and also with producers to try to implement soil health. Also work the soil survey side of the agency too on special soils investigations. So
I'm just going to start rapid fire with some questions here because I'm pretty interested to learn how you guys have made these collaborations work. And so I'm going to start with you, Sarah. And maybe let's just get on the same page. What does it mean to collaborate? And how do you know if you're collaborating?
To me, collaboration is having a group of people that are able to work together, share ideas freely, stay focused on a goal and work towards that common goal. They do that with respect, with clear communication. They're in a comfort zone where they can bring ideas to the table. I guess in our collaboration, like no idea is really a crazy idea. Like you just bring your ideas to the table. But collaboration also has these relationships between the partners that are really well developed, I think. And when you have well developed relationships like that, you have people working out things kind of on the side and then bringing it back to the group. So say Brad and I will work on some of things, and then maybe bring that back to the group later. So you have some really strong connections between individual players. And I guess, I've said before, like if I were to ever leave this collaboration, the project is so strong that it would just stand on its own. That's how you really know you have a collaboration, where if you have just say one really strong member, I mean, obviously we're working with a legend here, Brad Brummond. I don't know how many years Brad is going to be in this collaboration, but I feel really confident that we have a really strong group. So nonetheless, if one person leaves, I think we're going to just keep rolling because we have that conviction, I guess. And that to me is what a collaboration needs, all those things.
It's right. It's about the greater good of what's happening, not about the individual. And, Susan, let's talk with you a little bit about, you work at both the statewide and also nationally on the broad topic of soil health. And how do collaborations amongst organizations help you? And how do you know they are working?
I think that when you're able to collaborate across different organizations and at different scales, so it could be, local, state, national, whatever you need to. The benefit, of course, is that when you do that, there's the people that you're collaborating with can bring resources, bring ideas, resources maybe that to the project that you're working on, and I just think that in the end, when you have more people working together at these different scales perhaps and across these different organizations, and I think in the end we end up with a better product. So how do we know they work? Well, because, you know, we're able to produce products. I mean, we're actually able to meet the goals of what it is that we're all working together to try to achieve. So
yeah, that makes a lot of sense, Susan. Thank you for that perspective. And I think as we know that money can sometimes be tight and difficult to come across, you know, that collaborations amongst organizations is really critical. There have been times where with my program, I've talked to Susan and she's got money, but I don't, or, you know, and we figure out ways to make the program be pulled off at the least expense to those attending. So it's been really a strong way to do that. And Brad, you've got a lot of experience with working individually and working directly with farmers. And how do collaborations on an individual level help you, and how do you know they're working?
Well, I think that the key to being a successful extension agent is to develop those relationships. I tell young agents, you've got 2 or 3 years to get into the county and really build your relationships, because if you don't have them by their 2nd or 3rd year in, you're in trouble. But relationships are so extremely important. And how do you know they're successful? Because, you know, when you're moving forward and you're actively involved and you're performing different tasks, and like Sarah just mentioned, is we sometimes do things on the side, but we always talk together and bring some of our ideas back together and become validated by the group. And working with producers is much the same way. You work with the established producers, and pretty soon you're working with the periphery of their friends, and then that circle expands as you go.
Is that kind of a sign when you start working with, you know, you work with a core farmer that maybe has
Right.
bought into the program, but when you start working with the periphery, with their friends and their neighbors, is that how you know the program's working?
Absolutely. You know what, we started working with a potato grower in the Minto area, and now we're working with some of the neighbors that I've been here a long time, and I really have never gotten through that door with some of them. So it was really they open doors for you. They do when they speak positively about your programs and what you've done. Then they say, well, maybe I missed somebody that I needed to talk to over these years. Let's give Brad a call or Sarah a call, and then it all starts to happen.
So let's dive into the specifics about individual collaborations. And this is where I would love to have your questions in the Q&A, please. So we've kind of laid the groundwork. We've set the stage for organization collaborations and also individual. And so now we can really get into some of your questions too. So please be asking those in the Q&A. But we'll come back to you, Sarah. And how does someone new to a position, so I think on this group of panelists, you're probably the newest one to your position. How does someone new to a position get a foot in the door with farmers and build a program on that individual level, both face-to-face and now in a virtual world?
Yeah, it's a really great question. And I'll give you an answer from my experience, I guess. I started at the Soil Conservation District 6 years ago, and I was new to this area. It can be really hard to get your foot in the door with producers, but it really does help when you can go to an old pro in the neighborhood that knows everybody. Of course, I sat down and talked with Brad. I sat down and talked with NRCS. Just find people that are in the same line of work that you are and see if you can draw from some of their experiences with producers and maybe get some names of people that they think would be receptive and to, you know, at least having a conversation. There will be those producers that know that you're in the area and that are just naturally wanting to get to know you. They'll take that first step. Sometimes all you got to do is show up at a meeting where there's other people there, you know, producers, or maybe it's a township board meeting. You know, they hear about you and they know that you're around, and it's one of those things where you get to meet. But I really focused first on the relationship with that person. Of course, you know, as a watershed coordinator, which I started out as, I had, you know, lots of goals and stuff that I wanted to accomplish with producers, but you really can't rush into things with them. You need to get to know each other. And I think having patience is probably the hardest thing, especially if you're an A-type go-getter. You just want to get it all done and talk to everybody. And so, but you have to be patient and you have to be very consistent. And you do have to be tenacious too, because especially during COVID, in COVID, I find myself talking to a lot of new people, but I also find myself talking to a lot of people that I've known for a while and maybe haven't talked to them in a year or two. And now we're getting back together and talking again and planning projects. So a lot of that is done over the phone, through email, text. I haven't really embraced, reaching out to producers on videos or anything yet, but
we can change that, Sarah. I
hard.
can come to your county.
Yeah, I need somebody to help me with that.
Well, that's where we can form a successful collaboration, Sarah, because I love video development and sharing through that. So that's great advice when you're getting started. And Brad, I know that you have some experience too when you got started however many years ago. And where did you get your foothold and how did you build some of those relationships too?
I think back and when I first got in, I was a Hettinger County agent in Mott for 4 years, and what was big out there at that point was no-till. And some of you, if you've been to the Jerk Conference, you've seen the Swindlers. I've worked a lot with the Swindlers family, and they were one of the ones that really started to get me running down this road of deviation or this road of innovation because I was never taught about no-till. I mean, it was back in that day, and just the relationships I had with that family really helped me to understand how innovators work. They really taught me how innovators work, and that has come through today. It still works what they've told me, and I think back on those early days in the no-till business, it really got me rolling.
There's a lot to be learned from those individual relationships. And Susan, I want to ask you a question now too about you bring in and you train a lot of new NRCS field staff and other people in that organization. And how do you, what are the tools you give them? Is it good training, or how do you get them to get a foothold in their new positions?
First you have to make sure that we're providing the necessary training that they need in order to be successful in their new positions. The other thing too, I think I encourage them to build their network of people. And it could be, definitely people within our own agency, within the state, but then also build this network across other agencies, NDSU, make sure you got contacts there. And then have those networks, and then of course they'll build their network with their clients in the county that they're working in. But yeah, key is you have to have training, to help get off on the right foot, but then also encourage that network building.
I don't know if anyone's tuning in from other states, but there's a really nice program here where the state specialists and NRCS and also collaborating organizations really work to train the field staff in soil health practices. Now, Brad, you've built some relationships with farmers, and how do you balance your focus on farmers who are eager to collaborate versus those that you're working on with new relationships, or maybe you haven't reached before? And does this happen at the same time, or do you specifically focus on the ones that are coming to you for programming, and then later on those who you haven't reached yet?
I think when I was a younger agent, I made the mistake of thinking that I had to reach those people that I wasn't reaching, and I had to make that effort instead of focusing on how to build the need through the relationships that I had. And once I figured out that you work with what you have and you build on your success, the people that are standing in the periphery of this innovation that you're doing are watching you. Believe it or not, they are watching you. I never thought they were, but I now know they are. So that's how you get those new people in, is through the relationships and through your success. So I don't necessarily target the people that I want to get to, because I know if I'm successful working through the collaboration and working through my existing channels, they will come to me. And when they come to me, it's a bonding and a very effective outreach. When I come to them, I'm knocking on their door, and sometimes they'll even feel that maybe I'm pushing myself on them. So I try to work through existing relationships and bring them in through those relationships instead of targeting them specifically.
I've heard before when people say, oh, if you get XYZ farmer to adopt these practices, now you know you've succeeded. And when you put a target out there for those individuals, it doesn't necessarily make it a comfortable relationship. But if you then you forget about all the other people that you have the potential to reach. And so like Brad's saying, working through those relationships is really critical, and giving it time and being patient, again, which goes back to what Sarah was saying earlier. Susan, we've got a question for you in the Q&A, which is great. So keep those coming. What kind of training will make your field staff successful? Is it technical or anything else? Can you give us an idea of what that training looks like that you provide to your field staff?
Well, certainly technical. I mean, because we're a technical agency, so we need to make sure that we do have our staffs trained as best we can from the technical side of it. But there's also, I'm trying to think more like the social, and communications. So it's just not technical, but there's also this how to work with people, how to connect, sort of training, and so I must say that this particular workshop that we're involved in right now, I mean, this would be an excellent one that I would have our young field staff watch, because they'll get some ideas, definitely. So technical, we have to have that, and the agency rolls out a variety of different technical trainings that they're required by our new staff. I mean, they have to have it in order to be able to do conservation planning. But I think that there's also this training, and or ways that you can try to educate them on how to be able to work with others and across organizations. And I think that actually takes, I think that you just sort of develop that as you grow in your job and in your profession.
When I first started in my position, I actually attended one of Susan's trainings because I needed to get familiar with the soils and with the people who are out there doing this work. And in that training, Susan, you took the whole group to not only the ARS station in Mandan to get them familiar with the scientists there, but then also to a farm to do some of the training out there. And that was a really great approach.
Yeah, and we actually, well, other than COVID's now has sort of modified our plan for this year's training, but yeah, in the past and then into the future, we'll also do that. We're very lucky that we have our sister agency, the Agriculture Research Service here in Mandan, and very willing to allow us to be able to have several of our training sessions on site. And then we also do tap into the staff out there as well to help in the teaching of it. And then, of course, very important, especially in the soil health training, you have to get out in the field and with a farmer and be able to have the students learn from that producer. And the whole part of that is just that trying to get our staff comfortable with being able to interact with their clients. If you're new to the agency and you are not from a farm background, it can be intimidating having to go out there and work one-on-one with a producer. It can be for some people. So in the training, we try to get them or try to teach some techniques and some ways in which that would make it easier. And it's just not in our soil health training. We do it in our conservation planning class as well.
This would be my message to those who are starting in an extension position or in a research position, especially on a main campus where you're tenured faculty or working towards tenure. There's no shame in going to somebody else's training and not being on the agenda and not being the lead of that of that training. So by going to some of the things that Susan has offered, by even just going to the Soil Conservation District state meeting and not presenting at all, but just attending, I think there's a lot to be learned in it. And there, then you can actually just participate in the event and learn from it and not have the pressure of presenting. So I encourage anyone that's even new or established in their career at the university to take up some of those opportunities. When forming collaborations with farmers, which group should you focus on to build your program? Innovators, early adopters, early majority, or late majority? And Sarah, can I throw this question to you to see what you think?
Well, early adopters are really exciting, but I mean, I'll take anybody who's late in the game too, because they've had even longer to think about things. And I'm more intrigued to find out why now? Why now? And what is it that made you change? Yeah, I talked to somebody last year. We had an annual meeting and Dr. Franzen came up and spoke and talked about soil loss in Walsh County. And there was a retired farmer there that called on me, I don't know, 9 months later. And I said, like, why you call on me now? And he says, well, I was at that meeting and it changed everything for me. I was like,
Wow.
What? How did it change everything for you? And he just had not realized how much of the topsoil was really gone. And, in retirement, he's saying now it's time to, put some wildlife habitat in or look at these other things that my renters are doing, or, we've got a gully over here or whatever. So that intrigues me the most, probably more than early adopters. And it's just my opinion, because they know farming so well. And I just want to know what it is that changed their mind.
And that you've had to remain approachable. And how have you done that? How have you made it so that you don't discourage farmers from coming to talk with you who might be in that late group?
I guess just being open to that relationship and talking about what they want to talk about and making sure I ask questions. There's things that I want to know, like say about growing potatoes, because on our farm, we didn't grow potatoes. So it always gives me an opportunity to ask about a crop or how things are going on the farm or what that schedule is like. So I guess it's just kind of that farm chit chat that makes me a receptive participant. And they want to talk about the work they're doing. They're working really hard out there. And that, I think best when I'm talking things over with people. So a lot of times I'll just come up with stuff as I'm talking to that person. And I'm sure that happens to many of you that are out there listening too. So yeah, just general conversation. It keeps it approachable.
How do you recommend beginning farmer-led collaborations for a watershed management project or any project that you're looking at? And Sarah, we'll get some thoughts from you on this too, but let's start with Brad.
So we're talking about beginning a program. Is that what we're talking about? If I was going to, and it's really quite similar to it's really quite similar to be coming into a new position. You've really got to, my advice to a person in that situation would be to focus on what the needs are in the county and focus on the important parts of your goal, and maybe try to identify the early innovators in your area, talk to them, and they will give you the muse, I call it, the big crazy dreams, and then start talking to people who are a little further back in the pack who are a bit skeptical, so you get their views. And if you can work those the big crazy dreams with the practical dreams, and a little crazy, a little practical is where I live. Without a little crazy, you never move forward. Without a little practical, you jump off the cliff. I like to stand on the edge of the cliff in my profession. Okay. I don't like to step off the cliff.
Sarah, how do you get those farmer-led programs going, or how do you empower farmers to lead programs?
I think it's a process of getting people together that are like-minded. Like Brad said, some innovators. If you know innovators and you think you can maybe help them network, a lot of times I'll say, oh, you're really thinking about trying that. I know somebody that's tried that. Do you know that person? I mean, let's see if we can get together with them, or go look at something. So trying to get people that are like-minded together helps, but I actually need to form a watershed committee for the Park River watershed. And so I want it to be farmer led, right? So right now I'm going through my list of contacts thinking, who are the people that we've talked to in the past that have an interest in all the things that we're trying to promote? Well, it's about contacting those people. And I think we're going to have a Zoom meeting. It'll be like our very first one, you guys, but yeah, I'm going to try it, see how it goes, just to see if we can get that group of like-minded individuals together and, connect them. Because I always assume that like everybody knows everybody because it's Walsh County and there's not that many people here, but it's not true. Not everybody knows everybody. So we can be that person that helps network some of these folks together. So I think that's a really good approach sometimes.
And Susan, we're going to come back to you. There's a follow-up question to some of the techniques that you referred to in connecting your field staff with farmers. And do you have any specifics on those recommendations for communication? Or I know it's hard to think off the top of your head of maybe, sometimes these things just happen organically and the information just comes out, but are there any specific things that you can think of?
If we have field staff that are young in their careers, so they're just coming on board and they're trying to figure things out. We definitely have them partnered up with experienced staff. So it's not that when they first come on, they're, we just throw them out there and expect them to be able to go out and make these connections with the producers in the county they're working in. This part of the training too. We're lucky that we have a lot of experienced district conservationists in the state, in our counties, and they do an excellent job. We have soil conservationists that are likewise, and we also work with the districts too. And so if you're young and you're new, you have to work with these more experienced folks, and you do that for a while until you feel comfortable, and then you're able to go out and you can work independently with producers. Some people, it may be easier and it'll happen quick. Others, they may not be so comfortable with it, and it may take a little bit more time before they do feel comfortable with it. But I would have to say that, for the most part, I think that the farmers and producers in this state that I've seen, I think welcome our new staff. But also, I think it's important too that we use our clients, our farmers, our producers to help us train our staff as well. So there's so that's very important. And also, if you're new to your position, you do bring with you some skill sets as well. And so, but it may take a little bit of time before you're able to kind of figure out how it all, how it all works. But for some people, it can happen faster than for others. So
I remember one of my first farm visits, I went out with one of my colleagues, Dave Franzen, who was much more experienced than I was in extension. And one of the first farmers we went to see was Joe Brecker. And you've seen Joe up here co-hosting with me. Joe and I have a very, a close relationship. I have a lot of respect for him. And that first visit, a lot of times we can get caught up in our head thinking about what we're going to say and what we're going to contribute and the questions we're going to ask and how are they going to come across, semi-intelligently in our first interaction. And sometimes it's okay to just go to that and not have any expectations for yourself, to clear your head of questions, clear your head of what you think you need to share, and to just listen. And I think most people in those situations can be can be really, it opens it up to this kind of conversation, and for you learning from your mentor, but also learning from the farmer. So, so for anyone that puts a lot of pressure on themselves for those first interactions, you can just clear your mind, wipe it clean, and just go along for the ride and see what it is and observe and take it in and learn that way.
Absolutely.
And Susan, I want to, I want to follow up too with you, Susan, on another question that I have for you on kind of maintaining those individual collaborations. And so you're working across some large organizations across the state and also across the country. And how do you maintain those collaborations on an individual level? Because there are certainly people that you know within those large organizations that you collaborate with maybe more than others. And how do you keep those conversations going?
As time goes forward and as work, you know, the nature of our work, we actually just, I don't know. I mean, I think we do try to check in every so often, definitely. And also there's always a topic that comes up that that we know that, you know, the overall group's going to be also interested in. So if something comes up here, and for example, I'll just use this as an example. It happened this morning. Okay, so one topic that we're dealing with in this state is the dropping of soil pH in some areas. Trying to understand what's going on with that. Why is it happening? Where is it happening? And what can we do about it? And so this morning, I was actually on a call. It was, you know, to a person that was on our soil health team, our national soil health team, trying, and he's across the country from here, but just trying to get some ideas from him as to what he thinks and learn from what they've done in his part of the world. So, so sometimes, you know, we just, things just come up, topics will come up, issues will happen or will be brought forward. And so what we do is, you know, over time, you've developed this network of people that you know, and across agencies, it could be within your own agency. And so you reach out to them, and so key, I think, is just to be able to, you know, every now and then you have to touch bases with them. You know, if you don't have a pressing issue at the time, you know, just checking in as well. So because you want to make sure that you still, you know, you still have that network of people there, you know, to work with when the need arises.
Yeah, that's a great idea to keep checking in and just keep the communication open. And, you know, I want to go now from the individual collaborations to the organizational collaborations. And Sarah, this question's for you, and it's one that I've been asked before, and I'm not sure I ever have a good answer for it. But and you're working at the county level with the Conservation District and also with the NRCS and NDSU. Have you guys ever thought about how that you might take that to the state level, or how you might expand that to the whole organization versus just your organizations in the county?
Well, I'd be most interested actually starting on a regional scale with our local conservation districts, because the issues that we're dealing with in Walsh County, they're also dealing with in the region. And I know other areas of the state, the issues are not the same. But I guess you could use a lot of the same strategies as far as building your team and setting up a collaboration, because those things, no matter what issue you're working on, I think you can be able to use that. But I have thought about regionally getting the soil conservation districts together to have meetings as a group, especially now that state meetings aren't happening. And that's usually where we would network. And that's the other thing. I think with COVID, when you lose your networking opportunities, I think you have to try to find them again, whatever way you can. Like Susan said too, checking in with people. But yeah, I think I would start regionally first and then see how that goes, and then maybe look at how it could transfer to a statewide scale.
And do you think to do that, Sarah, do you think you need somebody at the state level or somebody at the regional level? Or do you think that can be done, you know, from the county level?
I think at the county level, we could get our partners together in the region. I mean, we're strong coordinators and collaborators here, so we know all of our neighboring counties and we would be able to bring them in. I think in order to coordinate the state, it would be great to have a contact there that knows everyone, that could really help get everybody involved and promote it. I think that's what we would need.
We often talk in extension too about what can be done at the county level and how that can be scaled up, right? I mean, there are a lot of great programs and great connections at the county level, and how do you take that to a higher level? And I think, like you said, even that step of regionally before going statewide is critical, because there's a lot of things you can do in 3 or 4 counties or 6 or 8 counties that can really build some strength and then go from there. You know, and I want to ask Brad now, how do you, with all these different people as part of this collaboration, how do you keep that message consistent and staying focused and moving forward as a group?
You know, and I've thought a lot about that, why we have been so successful. And sometimes it's hard to put a finger on it, but I think the reason we've been so successful is because we've been talking before we were collaborating. And once we started collaborating, we didn't stop talking. And just you gotta check in. And most of the group has my cell phone number. I have theirs. When they call me, I answer the cell phone. And sometimes it's after hours. Sometimes I'm on vacation, and that gets into a quality of life thing. But you know, it's that important to me that we do not miss the opportunity to talk to each other. And we have not missed our opportunities. I think one of the things that we've really done well in our soil health group is we have taken advantage of just about every opportunity that's been offered to us, because we were mobile, we were flexible, and we could communicate on a drop of a dime. And that's important. This got to be a fluid, organic, living being, and you can't neglect a living being. It's like a baby. You neglect a baby and the baby dies. So don't neglect the baby.
Yeah, that's good. Keep checking in and making sure that that message is consistent. And I know at the, you know, as a specialist also working in this area, keeping up with what my colleagues are recommending and what they're saying. So for example, I participated in this certification education the other day last week, and it was a great way for me to see what all of my colleagues were doing and what was happening at the county level. And it connected me. And so now it's like, okay, I need to make sure that I'm checking in with those other specialists often to understand their programs, the information they're sharing, and then build upon that so that we have a stronger NDSU program, not an individual soil health, an individual plant pathology, an individual entomology program, that it's an entire program through NDSU. And we have another question here too on how do you determine what you're doing is successful? And I'm trying to think of who would like to answer that question, but maybe let's come back to you, Brad. How do you know it's successful?
You know, I think the big litmus test and how you know it's successful is this. Are people excited about what you're doing? Are people calling you and want to be part of what you're doing? When those phone calls start that you've never had relationships with, and you can just feel them bouncing up and down in their chairs or talking to you, you know you've reached them in their soul and in their heart. That is success, and that's how you measure it. And you will measure the numbers later, but that's how I measure success.
And we've seen some of that success too, Brad, with the things that you've produced. For example, here, your article on 40 chances that you wrote, and it got all the way to Howard Buffett. And that was kind of a neat thing to see. And I would call that success. Have you measured it through an evaluation? No, but you've shown that it's reached the originator of that concept of 40 chances. So well done on that. And maybe it's a good time now to walk through, Brad, you sent us all a document, at least on the panel, prior to today on how do you start these collaborations and the steps that you've taken to get from me to we. And I don't know if you have that in front of you, if there's some kind of just overview that all of us would like to provide, Brad, with you kind of taking the lead on how to get these steps to build these collaborations.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind if you would share that document, because I put a lot of thought into how we did things. But I think the first thing you have to identify is you want people that are going to mutually benefit from this relationship. If there's no mutual benefits, then just hauling people in and make more work for people, that usually doesn't work. You need to figure out, and then once you get that once you figure that out, and you got to sit them down, and you got to make sure that even though they may mutually benefit, they may not see it that way. They may still want to go their own way, and then that's fine. Let them go their own way. Those are the people that want to work alone. That's fine. I'm not one of those, because I can't work alone and be successful. So I just go down the other road. And then you need to figure out how best your organization, the group you have, is going to work together. We have been so blessed with our soil health group, because we have personalities that mesh so well, and that we're just, one is as crazy as the other. And sometimes we have to hold each other back because we get a little irrational exuberance, I think I would call it. But that happens. And then, you know what? And once your little crazy ideas start flowing through, and you get that excitement, they're jumping on the end of the phone when they're talking to you, then the momentum starts building, and pretty soon the momentum starts driving what you're doing and starts driving you forward. And at some point, it maybe it'll drive you forward faster than you ready to go. But that's how it is when you build excitement and you build a group, and it is what it is. And sometimes you get overwhelmed by what you've created. And sometimes the dog eats the tail, and I felt that way many times. But you know what? I'm willing to risk that just to move forward. But that's how I view these collaborations.
Susan, have you ever been in a meeting, or, say you get the group of like-minded people together? Is there any way that you can tell that somebody maybe wants to be the kind of lone wolf, and are there any indicators that you see that would let you know who wants to collaborate and who maybe just wants to kind of keep doing what they're doing until they're ready to collaborate?
I've been involved with a team where we had a couple people that I think came in initially, just curious probably. But through the initial meeting with the whole group, it was clear that these folks just, they weren't quite ready, and had different viewpoints, different thoughts on process. And so, and that was okay. But I think that and in this particular situation, I think once everybody was had time to pretty much open up and share, okay, this, what the goals are, what is it that we want to try to achieve, I think then it became probably more clear to the ones that probably initially didn't think so. So in the end, we actually all the team did gel. But yeah, there will be times where you might have somebody that will come in, and yeah, they're just not quite ready to be on board with you at that time. And yeah, and that's okay. It will happen.
You can look at it like when you're working with farmers, that there's that one farmer that maybe isn't quite ready for the soil health practices or to implement them, but you don't target them. You give them time to decide when they're ready. And an unforced collaboration is always going to be more successful than a forced collaboration. So I think it's, like Susan said, it's okay to figure out your route, figure out your program. I did it for several years in the soil health program, trying to get my feet under me, figure out what I wanted to do, how I was going to do it, and then brought in the collaborators later. And I think that's okay. But make sure that you're communicating that message. And this is probably a mistake I made, that you're communicating that message as to what you're doing, so that others understand that you don't always want to be a lone wolf, that you do want to collaborate at some point, but that communication is key to really understanding what people's intentions are and how they're navigating the system, and when they're going to be ready to collaborate and do larger things. So we have about 10 minutes left, 12 minutes left, and I want to give each of you an opportunity to cover anything that I haven't asked you about, or that you want to make sure that you touch on today. And Sarah, is there anything that we missed that you want to make sure gets brought up?
Well, I just want to comment on what you just said there about people's intentions. I think, and also going back to what you said, attending a meeting, but not necessarily being a speaker. I think one of the best things you can do is learn as much as you can about an organization before approaching them. It's really important to do homework. Just, obviously everyone will say, oh, get on their webpage, get on their Facebook, but no, actually just being at a meeting as an attendee, meet some of the people in their audience, get to know what their interests are, because if you're going to collaborate with somebody, you need to know really what their goals are, what, you know, why are they there and what are they doing in life that they're trying to accomplish. And then you know how you can approach them a little better and see, yeah, you know, is there something maybe I can help them succeed on this or that, or then you can say, well, what would you think if we you know, did a talk together? Is there somebody that you want to bring in, or, you know, sponsorships or that kind of thing? Have you ever thought about doing this, or have you tried that? I mean, it just opens the door for you. And I guess to start those conversations, it's always been those kind of questions that have led to more conversations. So, but you'll figure out, I think, through some of those meetings, what their limitations might be too. You know, being a soil conservation district, we can go out and coordinate a ton of stuff. Same with extension. If you have federal partners, they're going to be a little bit more limited on what they can work with on, you know, with you on. How about that? If you're working with private industry, they can do a lot of things as well. So you kind of got to do some homework, but there's great ways to do that before you're actually having those conversations.
Yeah, I like that idea of really figuring out what those organizations are doing, what individuals within those organizations are doing, get to know them better, so that you can build those relationships. And Susan, is there anything that we didn't cover that you want to make sure you mention?
You know, kind of bring up the same topic that Sarah just did, actually. I just feel like, you know, you have to, if you can, you know, try to attend meetings, try to go to workshops whenever possible. And you do that so that you can help build that network and you can meet new people. And then by also going, you know, to meetings and workshops, you're listening to the presentations, you're listening to what people are presenting. And then, you know, you kind of have that, you know, that in the back of your mind, so that if something comes up and you need to pull together a team to work on something, then, you know, you can draw from those people. But also I would just mention that, you know, if you have a good solid network of people that you work with, you can tap into them. So if you're working, like, you know, if I'm working with a producer and I get asked something, and I don't know the answer to that. And so then what you do is, you know, you can tap into that network of people that you know, and you can say, you know, I'm going to connect you with this person or these people, and have them help you out. So yeah, I think just if you can, I just think that it's just so very important to have that network, and to try to have this network that includes people from different organizations.
With the network approach, like Susan, if you ever ask me a question, I'm quick to answer it because I have that relationship with you. And so if you build those relationships and you ask others for their expertise or their input, you're going to get that response from them on those questions. And Brad, we're gonna have you kind of wrap up things, but there is a question here, and I want to ask this one to you. And it's from the Q&A. What experiences do you have on collaborating with policymakers on ag regulations? I'm asking you this because you've been around the block long enough to know what we can and can't do, or what we should and shouldn't do.
I have a lot of experience with that. Most of you don't know this, but I was one of the leaders in the organic movement back through the 80s and the 2000s. I went through Republican Commissioners of Agriculture, Democratic Commissioner of Agriculture, and North Dakota Department Organic Advisory Committee. I've sat on SARA, I was past president of North Central SARA board. I have dealt with them all the way to senators. So just be honest, but measured. Okay, this is maybe where some of your excitement's got to be tethered a little. Be honest and excited, but measured. Just remember, you're dealing with people way above your pay grade in most cases. And be careful what you say, because it can come back to your organization. So just be excited but measured. Okay.
So there's times to have that excitement, like he said, you know, you got to be careful not to let it loose at, you know, with a bunch of calm people, I guess. But people will also notice your enthusiasm for what you are trying to tell them and what you care about. And when you're sizing up somebody to be a collaborator, gauge how excited they are about what you're talking about. Because when we were at DIRT conference, Abby, we met one of our key team members there. Brad already knew the guy. I didn't know him. I just met him. And I said, Brad, I want to introduce you to Dan. And Brad's like, yeah, I've known Dan for years. Well, I didn't know that. But anyway, when you can find people to collaborate with and you meet them and they have that passion and it shines through, then you know you got a good team member. Just invite them on the team, you know. But yeah, there's a place for it. You're right, Brad.
Susan, have you interacted, I'm sure, with the NRCS, and I suppose in one case I joined you on an effort where we were talking with a senator, and so how do you create those relationships, or how do you work through them in a way that represents you and your organization in a positive light?
Well, when it comes to working, you know, on the political side of things, of course, you know, there's a lot we can't do. But if we have somebody that comes to us, you know, of course, you know, we have our channels that we have to work through. But I think that but it's important, you know, to address to address people that are in the political realm. But yeah, you just, yeah, you know, as Brad said, you know, you do have to be careful on how you do it, but it is important as well. So, but for us, you know, we typically will work through a state conservationist, and then that's how it would happen.
So oftentimes if I'm approached by a county commissioner, I go through the agent, because I want to make sure they're the ones that have the relationship at the county level. If it's somebody from the state, I make sure that my upper administration knows that I've been approached. So then it kind of keeps you in check. It lets you know maybe what you can and can't do if you're unsure, and will keep you in, Brad, what did you call it? That moderated space, or?
You know, if I got to leave with one message, and here's the deal. I have read a lot about George Patton, and he had his issues, but I tell you what, one thing he did know, his motto was, a good plan violently executed today is better than a perfect plan executed later. So go with what you have, do it with enthusiasm, and do it with purpose, and move forward. And if you're going to wait for perfect never happens. If you're waiting for perfect, it'll never happen. So go with good. And get your team with you, and you'll find perfect as you move forward.